I read an article recently where Ian Anderson picked out his top 10 Jethro Tull songs. Now, I love making videos about Tull and I'll make one at the drop of a hat, so I thought this might make for an interesting one, but give me any excuse. Now, his first choice was a Christmas song. This was tucked away on the B-side of Love Story, the third single by the band released in late November 1968. At the time, I was all over Love Story. When I finally turned the record over and had a listen to A Christmas Song, and that tin whistle comes in and Ian sings the first few lines of Once in Royal David City, I was kind of like, ho hum. Then my jaw dropped. Here in the UK in those days, Christmas, Sundays, and the Queen, they were the untouchables. You didn't mess with those things, they were sacred. But here, tucked away on the B side of a Jethro Tull single, was Ian Anderson exposing all the hypocrisy of Christmas. Once in Royal David City stood a lonely cattle shed, where a mother held her baby. You do well to remember the things he later said. When you're stuffing yourselves at the Christmas parties, you'll just laugh when I tell you to take a running jump. You're missing the point, I'm sure does not need making, that Christmas spirit is not what you drink. So how can you laugh when your own mother's hungry? And how can you smile when the reasons for smiling are wrong? And if I've just messed up your thoughtless pleasures, remember if you wish, this is just a Christmas song. Ian's next pick is Nothing Is Easy. This is taken from the band's second album, Stand Up. Ian says that this is important because it marks the beginning of the musical relationship between himself and guitarist Martin Barre. Even at this early stage, their interaction was quite extraordinary. If I turn my head and look out of my bedroom window, I can actually see the Penzance Winter Gardens, well, the site of the old Penzance Winter Gardens, where Martin played his first ever gig with Tull. And you could see, even at that first gig, that Martin and Ian were meant to play together. Track 3, A New Day Yesterday, also from the album Stand Up. Ian recalls running some of the material he'd written for Stand Up past Mick Abrahams, the band's original guitarist, and coming to the conclusion that these songs weren't going to be up Mick's street at all. Mick was a blues purist, a tremendous guitarist, but Nothing Is Easy has one foot or a few toes in the blues. It's definitely heading towards blues rock that would be all the rage by 1969. Anderson, as ever, with his eye very much on the ball and changing fashions. Fourth pick, Aqualung. This started life as a tiny little acoustic riff Ian presented to the band, and it grew and blossomed from there. The idea for the lyrics came from a photo Ian's wife Jenny took of a tramp in London. Ian, I can remember sitting in a hotel room in LA working out the chord structure for the verses. It's quite a tortured tangle of chords, but it was meant to really drag you here and there and then set you down into the more gentle acoustic section of the song. And of course, there is that famous story as Martin Barre rips out that epic guitar solo. Jimmy Page is watching and waving from the control room. Martin Barre: I'm playing this solo and it's one of my best ever. And there's Jimmy in the control room, waving like mad, saying, "Hey Martin," and I'm thinking, I can't wave back or I'm going to blow it. Next track, Locomotive Breath. Ian found it so difficult to convey exactly what he wanted on this track, so much so that every time the band played it, it ended up a complete mess. So Ian recorded bass drum, hi-hat, acoustic guitar, electric guitar, and some electric rhythm guitar. Eventually, they managed to mould the song together from Anderson's initial studio sketches. Next up, Songs from the Wood, 1977. I must admit that this album took me completely by surprise. Yes, we'd had Solstice Bells a few months before, but at the time it was rumoured that that wasn't even going to be included on the album. I had no idea that Tull were going to go in this direction. Was it folk rock folk, progressive, medieval folk? I had no idea, but it sounded fantastic. And this title track with all its incredible musical twists and turns, is the stuff of genius. And those harmonies, as I always say, harmonies to die for. Next up, Heavy Horses. This song and the album Heavy Horses will always have a special place in my heart. In 1978, I was living in Wales, very close to the Brecon Beacons, a mountain range in the south of the country, living very much the rural life. The big old heavy horses were a dying breed back then, but there were a few nearby. Anderson's hymn to a changing world, changing not always for the better, will stay in my heart forever. Remember, this was also the time of punk and new wave, and Tull were regarded then like those heavy horses, a relic of the past. Next up, Farm on the Freeway, from the album Crest of a Knave, which won the Grammy for Best Hard Rock Stroke Metal Album, even though the album isn't that hard rock and it definitely doesn't fit into the metal category. But you would do well to remember that the flute is a heavy metal instrument. It's another Anderson classic, full of his wry observations about the world we live in. He was originally going to call it Farm on the Motorway, but decided that didn't quite sound right. For number 9, Ian picks another song off that very underrated album, A Crest of a Knave, Budapest. Ian, Budapest is the kind of song I like to write because it embodies a lot of different nuances which I think are subtly joined together. It sort of moves from classical to slightly bluesy to folk and just slips between them, and you don't see the stitching. Ian's last pick is A Birthday Card at Christmas. Ian says the idea for this song comes from his daughter's birthday, which is on December the 22nd. He says a lot of people, of course, have their birthdays around this time, and they get given combined birthday and Christmas presents. Poor old Jesus always gets gypped out of a birthday. And it comes from the rather ignored Jethro Tull Christmas album. I know when you mention Christmas albums, most music fans throw up their hands in horror, and quite rightly so. The old joke was, you want a turkey, just buy Elton John's Christmas album. Tull's Christmas record, you should rechristen, it's a winter solstice album. Every year we put it on when the nights draw in, put another log on the fire, have another wee toddy just to keep out the cold, you understand, and it works wonders. And that, my friends, brings us full circle. For Tull's Christmas album contains a reworked version, a modernised version of A Christmas Song. So I hope you've enjoyed this little foray through Ian's favourite Jethro Tull songs. Thank you for listening. Please stay safe, stay well. Please subscribe to the channel. Please give us a like or a dislike. And I'll see you in the next video.